This is the cautionary statement before we start. I'm not a mechanic. I'm not trained to do this type of work. I'm a hobbyist who has an interest in learning new things. So what you see here, if you want to try it, you do so at your own risk. This is just how I do it, and this video is strictly for entertainment purposes only. Here we have my 1974 Z1 Kawasaki. Pretty original bike. Has about 53,000 miles on it. I've owned it for about 4 years. Don't really know the history on the bike except to say that it did a lot of touring, I believe, and is in very nice shape. One of the things that I don't like about the bike, though, is that it has the standard 630 drive chain, which requires a lot of maintenance and adjustment. What I'd like to do is to convert that to a sealed X-Ring 530 drive chain, which will be easier for me to maintain, will be cleaner, lighter, and require less adjustment. So this video is going to be about the process I'm going to go through to make that conversion. The bike itself, for those who might be curious, has the standard exhaust pipes. That's the original paintwork. The seat is reproduction. I've also switched out the carburetors. The carburetors on this currently on it now are from a 1977 KZ1000. They're 26 millimeter. These are just easier to maintain and adjust, and they seem to work very well. I also have a Pingal fuel tap on it, so I can turn the gas off, and it's a safety thing. The other thing that's not original is the chain guard. That came with the bike. It's very wide. There was a double chain on the bike when I got it, and I think that this particular chain guard came as part of that. That's all I know. It works very well, and I'm going to continue to use it. As I said, the bike's got 50,000 miles on it and runs pretty well. She's a good rider. And all this is to make sure that it's easy for me to pull it out of the garage and have fun riding it, because I do like to ride it almost weekly, maybe every second week. In the video, we'll go through the disassembly. I'm also going to show you the parts that you're going to need to do the conversion and where you can get them, and some of the tools you'll need to install the new 530 chain, which is an X-ring, requires riveting. Here we go on the disassembly. I'd like to show you first the parts that we need to remove to be able to perform the drive chain conversion. First, going to remove the cover that covers the starter motor, and we're going to remove the shifter, as well as the front foot peg, and then we'll be able to remove the bolts from the sprocket cover and remove that. We're also going to take off the exhaust pipe so we can easily work on the chain and the chain guard, and we'll undo the rear axle so we can slide the chain off, and then remove the rear wheel so we can change the rear sprocket. A little tight in there. This is a 10 millimeter ratcheting wrench, which is a handy thing for this little job. The reason for taking the starter motor cover off is it sits over top of the sprocket cover, and you need to get it off to be able to get the sprocket cover off. Almost there. There we go. We'll just put that aside. Okay. Next, we're going to take off the foot peg. We're going to use a 13mm socket to do that. Just 2 equal nuts. Come off very easy. We just take a small flathead screwdriver and pop those guys off. They sit in the rubber. There we go. Also, I'm going to spray a little silicone spray on the rubber. So we're going to make it easier to slide this guy off. There we go. Just wiggle it a little bit, slowly, and off she comes. Next we can take the shifter off. Again, a 10mm bolt. I got a little 10mm ratcheting. And we'll take that guy off. Out. Sliding it carefully. There we go. Put that together. That's looking good. So we'll just clean this up a little bit. Have a little look. Seal there. Okay, next up we'll remove the sprocket cover. I've got a little ratchet here, 10mm. These are all bolts. So, let me just loosen them up. Get a slightly longer extension for this guy down here. That's the last one. On these engine cover bolts, I decided to use a 1/4" drive ratchet, largely just as a safety thing so that I don't over torque anything. These bolts are kind of hard to find in vintage motorbikes, and no, I don't want to have to go looking for them because I broke one by over torquing it. Okay, there's also little washers on these, and you know, be careful when you take it out so you don't lose those. Looking good. Okay, grab her from the bottom, get her from the top. There we go. Careful on the seal. Pull her straight back. And there we go. Pretty good. To remove this, now we have to remove the clutch cable. And this is pretty straightforward. We have a little pin, a little cotter pin we pull out, and we just lift and unplug it, and the cable will come right out. So we have our cotter pin, and with some needle nose pliers, we'll just bend her down. There we go. And now we'll just pull it out. And that's that. Once we have it out, we can compress the spring. And out comes the cable, like so. Take the spring off, the cable slides right out, and there's our clutch cover removed. We can, or sprocket cover removed. So we have the sprocket cover out, now we can clean that up, and everything looks good. Okay. The dynamo cover, and I believe the common problem and why we see that is there's a fitting for the cable and it leaks oil. So it looks like at one point someone tried to put some silicone sealant on it to keep that oil leak from happening. Well, it's done the job because I haven't seen any leaking oil and I didn't put it on. Okay. We have the outer sprocket cover removed, and now we're gonna remove the inner sprocket cover. So to do that, we'll first extract the clutch pusher rod. Just get that out of the way so it's not interfering with anything. Have to clean that up a little later. And we got 3 screws, and we'll use our GIS number 3 tip and my impact driver to loosen these up. Okay, that aside. Put those aside. Really important to use JIS standard screwdrivers. This is the type you want to get. It's a vessel. You can buy these on Amazon. This is the number 3, and that's what I was using, was the number 3. This again is a vessel impact driver. I got it when I was 16, so it's about 40 years old now. It's pretty old, but works like a charm. This is an extension bit. I just used it because my short one's not as nice. We're ready to remove the exhaust pipes now. On the Z1, that's fairly straightforward. The pipes come off in pairs as they're attached at the back, as you can see right here. And what we have at the rear is we have one muffler bolt, which we'll remove. It's 14 millimeter. And there's a 17 millimeter lock nut that we'll have to hold. So that's okay. But first, we're gonna loosen off and let these flanges slide down the pipes. So we have some 10 millimeter nuts and lock washers to remove. First, I'm just going to loosen off the rear muffler bolt. I'm not going to take it out, just loosen it up. Okay, that nut remove. Bolt's still in there, so go ahead now and remove the 6mm nuts. Putting the pipes on in the front. Nut and the lock washer. Okay. And we slide that down. Holders, I believe. Okay, that's one. Now we'll get the second one. Okay. Gonna do this by hand. Something to keep in mind when you take these flanges off, these holders, is they only go on one way. And you'll see when you pull them down that, no problem. And this one, the fins have been trimmed. That's so when you put it up, it clears the side of the frame rail. Okay, there, now she loosened off, so we'll let this guy come down. Take off our clips. Okay, the front's ready to come on. There's nothing down here. The pipes are together. There's my lock nut. Okay. Not a real bad idea to have a second set of hands when you're doing this, but it can be done with one. Put a little protector down here because the pipes will come apart quite easily. And hold them underneath, and then we will pull the balls out. Quite easy to do. Come here. Okay, that's good. And then they separate. Top one comes off. There we go. Okay. It's a big opportunity to clean these things up. Well, you got them off. As you can see, a little bit of road rash there. We'll clean that all up. I just hang these pipes up to get them out of the way while I'm doing my work. Next up, I want to remove the chain guard. There's only 2 6mm hex bolts on that, so everything I need is right here, so I'll go ahead and remove those. One. Two. Those look good. Chain guard should slide up and then we can pull it back. Slides up over this thing here. There we go. Let me just pull it back slowly so it's gonna just scrape it. And there we go. Good shape. So we'll clean that up too. Okay, things look pretty good here. I'll find the master link and we'll pop that off. There it is. Right there. There we go. That's the clip. Off. And out she is. 630 heavy duty. At this point, I got a little cleaning to do. I'm gonna roll the bike out, sort of put some degreaser on it and hose her off carefully. And then we'll be back with a clean bike to work on. With a little S100 and a little elbow grease, we've cleaned up our motor. And the Z1's looking pretty good right now. So the next step is going to be to remove the front sprocket. We're going to remove the front sprocket now. So the first thing we have to do is we need to tap down the lock washer. There's a little tab here. I started tapping it down with a screwdriver. I'm going to take this chisel and give it a little bit more. Just a few taps. Remove the nut. I've got a 30 millimeter 1/2 inch drive socket on my impact wrench, and that should do the job just nicely. We're gonna have to hold the sprocket. So I have this holder tool which we'll use to hold the sprocket. So I'm gonna put that on now. It's on there pretty good. There we go. Take this little guy off and we're gonna end up making a new one of those for the new sprocket. Release this. Sprocket. So we're taking off 630 15 tooth steel sprocket. First thing I'd like to do is explain to you the from to changes that we're going to make here. The parts that came off and the new parts that I'm going to install for the 530 drive. Okay, so we got it all here. We had a 15 tooth front and a 35 tooth rear 630 sprocket for an overall ratio of 2.33 rotations, and we had a tab lock washer, and I also had a 20 millimeter lock nut, which is incorrect. It should be a 20 millimeter plain nut, but that was what was on the bike and that's what I took off. So what we're going to go to is right here. This is the new 530 plan and where I got the parts. So we're going from Z1 Enterprises. I got the front and rear sprockets. For a same diameter sprocket with 530 chain, we will increase the number of teeth from 15 to 18, and on the front, and on the rear we'll increase it from 35 to 42, and that will give us the same 2.33 ratio. between the two sprockets. Because the 530 X-ring chain is actually wider than the 630 I took off, we're going to have to put spacers behind each sprocket. The front spacer is available from Z1 Enterprises. You can see it there. It's tiny. And it's the same, both these spacers are exactly the same width, thickness, I guess. The other spacer is a Kawasaki part number 92026-0-108, and those are available on eBay, and they come to eBay somewhere in the range of $30 to $50 US. So that's where that one came from. I'm going to go with plain nut 20 millimeter, and I'm going to fabricate a new tab washer from this washer, which I got from my Kawasaki dealer, and that washer part number is 92200-0851. You'll note that it's a splined washer. The splines are a proper fit for the splines on the output shaft. However, the problem is the output shaft spline will not extend beyond the sprocket. So it's going to essentially be used as a flat washer with a tab, just like that guy. And I'm going to make that up, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. And finally, the drive chain. It's an EK chain, X-ring, and it's a 530 MV X Z2 110 links. The chain links will increase from 92 to 110 because of the change in pitch from 630 to 530. So 110 links is what you want to look for. Here we are. We have all the parts ready for the front sprocket assembly. Front sprocket ready to go. And we're going to use one of these two holes as the place where we're going to insert our tab in the tab washer. Here's the tab washer that I fabricated. I just flattened half of it in a vise, and then I cut a tab with a hacksaw and folded it over. So when we put it together, it will go in just like so. And then we'll put our nut on top, and we'll bend up a tab.